Now we are starting our closing plenary. We're going to explore critical questions around artificial intelligence and technologies and digital innovation. We want to critically think, how these instruments can help to transform finance into drivers of regeneration and stewardship of nature's frontiers. This interactive and solutions oriented dialogue will bring together diverse actors from finance, from civil society, and from AI. In this session, we will be exploring a couple of quick questions that include: how can artificial intelligence help scale and speed up investment flows toward climate action, biodiversity conservation, and community-led development? How can we ensure that vulnerable and local communities benefit directly from artificial intelligence-enabled financial mechanisms? What governance models will allow us to maximize AI benefits while minimizing its risks? And how can partnerships across finance, technology, and civil society accelerate a just, inclusive, and sustainable AI-powered transition? Thank you once more, all that are here in person with us today in Berlin, but also the plenty of people who are joining us virtually. It's a pleasure to have you, all of us, here, all of you here. Before starting the session with the panelists, I would like to invite Ms. Rita El Zaglu, Director of the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, who is joining us virtually. She will share insights about Colombia's Rapid Deployment Mechanism project, one of the first bold steps powered by the new Fast Track grants, and show how its early breakthrough are already linking RDM, RED, and matchmaking mechanisms to accelerate the path towards the 30 by 30 initiative. So please, Hita, you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you, Aitor. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for not being able to be there with you in person, but I'm very excited to be able to share with you in this plenary, in this closing plenary of the GLF Symposium, a little bit about the work that we're doing within the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. Briefly on the coalition, so the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People, it's the largest intergovernmental coalition on nature with 122 countries that have joined up to date and is co-chaired by Costa Rica and France, with the core mission to support its members in the implementation of the protection of at least 30% of the land and 30% of the ocean by 2030. This kind of a joint goal is also known as the 30 by 30 target. So whenever I refer to 30 by 30, it's directly related to this goal. As the symposium has focused discussions on translating environmental goals into actionable financial strategies, this fully aligns with the HAC vision. And in this sense, I would like to share with you two main tools that we have developed to support our country members, in particular developing countries that are facing challenges, including limited financial and technical resources. The first one is related to the rapid deployment mechanism. Aitor already mentioned this a little bit, and basically the rapid deployment mechanism, or RDM, it's the first, it's really a small grant initiative. This year it was the first time that we launched it back in April, and mainly it followed the coalition's win of the Urshad Prize last year, which enabled us to be able to support our countries with this grants mechanism. Mainly within this rapid deployment mechanism, we provide seed funding to developing countries to kickstart high-impact conservation actions. Within 7 months, we were able to really establish the mechanism and receive the different requests from our country members, and we managed to deploy 10 first grants back in September. And I'll share the case of Colombia in just a bit. These grants support national 30 by 30 roadmap, capacity building, small-scale project, but really are delivered through national and local NGOs in collaboration with the government. So from our perspective, this connection between the government and the local and national NGOs was extremely important. The second tool that I will very briefly mention is the matchmaking platform. And this is a platform that we created within the coalition as our main connection tool. And basically, with this tool, what we created is that countries are able to submit their needs, be it on technical or financial needs. And us, with our over 70 partners and supporters, we do our best in matching those needs with the offers that are available out there. So we have created those two tools. And more specifically, why I wanted to share with you a little bit more was on the case of Colombia. Colombia was one of the first 10 grantees of the rapid deployment mechanism. And the project that they're working on is specifically a conservation priorities platform. So while the national system of protected areas in Colombia already safeguards important areas, they've shared with us that many critical ecosystems, species, ecosystem services, and culturally significant landscape remain outside the formal protection. And the progress has been slow, not because of the political willingness, but really because due to budgetary constraint, technical gaps, and the absence of a unified process to bring together scientific, traditional, and local knowledge. And so through the rapid deployment mechanism, we will be able to fund the activities that will be including convening thematic working groups across Colombia's protected area subsystems, interinstitutional review and validation process, and co-creating participatory mechanism that meaningfully incorporate traditional and local knowledge. So in short, the project will enable the development of a dynamic conservation priority platform. It's an interactive tool that consolidates national information. It produces geographic outputs, which will lead planning, create an identification of a high priority natural and cultural areas, and will enable evidence-based decision on both expanding protected areas and identifying other effective conservation measures, or OECMs. These outcomes will allow Colombia to accelerate and coordinate its pathway towards achieving the 30 by 30 target. And precisely this kind of catalytical early stage impact the RDM mechanism was actually created for, and we're happy to see that it's already going to be able to deliver specifically with this case of Colombia. To conclude, I would like to reiterate that from the HAC Secretariat, we have our main goal to support our country members and our partners in accelerating action towards 30 by 30. The time remaining is less than 5 years for us to reach our goal, and we have worked tirelessly to develop the tools and lay the ground to be ready to support our countries. Each country will have its own circumstances. In some cases, it will need some political mobilization. In other cases, it will be more related to finance or technical capabilities, but we remain committed to engage with the different stakeholders and partners to ensure the steady and accelerated progress towards our common goal. I look forward for the discussion of the panel, and I hand it back to you, Hector. Thank you very much.
Rita, thank you very much. 30 by 30 is at the core of our system convention, the Convention on Biological Diversity, Global Biodiversity Framework. And once we are enhancing biodiversity conservation, we are also ensuring climate adaptation and mitigation. So thank you very much for sharing this project in this initiative with us. And now, as keynote speak to introduce this discussion, I'm very pleased to share with you a pre-recorded video from Waring Flores, founder of Kinray Hub, an indigenous-led research and development, who will be sharing some specifics regarding the discussions on artificial intelligence and financial flows to safeguards and ethical considerations. So please, if we can have the video, thank you very much.
Tapanalama, at the juncture of reinstating indigenous Commonwealth sovereignty and the role of AI, there is a collapse. Technological promises and system change mantra. And every COP asks, how do we do this? The answer has been innovation and technology. And today, it is simpler. We need to stop assuming we know. For instance, the Task Force on Nature-Related Finance Disclosures, Science-Based Target Networks, and the Global Reporting Initiative tells companies, map biodiversity in your supply chain, measure dependencies, disclose risks. But here is what they are not saying. Measure communities in your supply chain. disclose the dispossession of indigenous commonwealth, and the role of communities in your nature positive portfolio dependencies. Corporate mechanisms include biodiversity, but exclude over 400 million indigenous peoples who manage the nature finance of over 80% of the global biodiversity. And their systemic exclusion from nature finance mechanisms is not an oversight. It is by design. And as we see AI, now we need to look at the digital endangerment of indigenous commonwealth in 3 levels. 1, data disposition mechanisms built on the myth of the doctrine of discovery. These disclosure reports requires communities to map nature dependencies using data. Whose data are we using and how has been governed? ChatGPT, for instance, can cite indigenous data sovereignty concepts, but provides incorrect attributions, perpetrating intellectual gentrification, algorithmic decision making. AI systems now determines which biodiversity projects receives financing. And the State of AI in Business 2025 reveals that organizations in weird countries, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic countries, and the only one deploying at the scale. And their shared socioeconomic pathways, we see that 45% of the population remains in low levels of digital transformation by 2050. The same communities that manage 80% of the global biodiversity assets. Indigenous communities with no digital infrastructure are systematically excluded from this reimagined AI financing. Environmental cause as obscure as big tech champions AI for climate change, obscuring the social environmental damage from mining, water extraction, and e-waste in global majority territories. Artificial intelligence will now, by default, reinstate indigenous commonwealth sovereignty. Current business as usual trajectories dispossess the indigenous commonwealth. Therefore, the greatest cost isn't measured in energy or water use. It is measured in the dimensions of sovereignty. How do we do this, really? Well, we need to start by closing the enforcement and compliance gaps. For instance, only 3 out of 33 countries explicitly recognize communities' carbon rights. So we need domestic integration of indigenous people rights, implementation of standards for data sovereignty, and indigenous people's equity share in payments for ecosystem services. The question is not, can we afford this? It is, can we afford to continue funding systems designed to fail? We need to redirect the climate finance. We do not need to find new money. The capacity exists. The access is controlled to climate finance. Those with power will not voluntarily redistribute the financing. We need to do it, and we need to find a way. How does really weird science reconciles with indigenous knowledge? Well, we can do this through emancipation from the doctrine of discovery. When rigorous data collection meets indigenous data sovereignty, this is not a compromise. This is complementarity. Now, at this juncture, will technology empower indigenous peoples? This question assumes that technology is neutral, and it is not. AI amplifies whether logical is informed into it. Surveillance becomes precision colonization. Biotechnology becomes a biopiracy tool. But there is another way for technology, in which indigenous nation issues data sovereignty implementation standards. This is the realization of the promise of technology. It is not an obstacle. Well, to leave you this, to continue the discussion, the negotiation at COP30 in Brazil, the future is not coming. It is already designed, and it exists in the personhood of nature and in our intergenerational shareholdership and responsibility. And it is not whether AI can reimagine finance. It is whether we will build the infrastructure for frontline communities' shareholdership. And I believe, and we believe, that indigenous people are not asking for permission to lead economical transformation. We are inviting you to a joint custody to sustain life on this planet. I hope this is possible after COP30 as we implement it. Napana Alamo.
I want to thank you very, very much, Floris, for bringing this extremely insightful intervention. While we are reflecting a bit of the discussions that Floris have bring to us, I also invite our audience to scan the QR code that are going to appear in the screen very shortly, and also to share your thoughts with us. The slide question is, what is your biggest hope or concern about artificial intelligence in sustainable finance? Flores give us a really critical points on using artificial intelligence to ensure financial flows reach indigenous peoples and local communities, as well as the importance of having ethical frameworks to guide artificial intelligence development and implementation. One of the critical things that I think is relevant to reflect is power and balance are shaping most of our decision makings, and this is part of our questions if power on artificial intelligence are also being considered. Once we are receiving some of the questions, the part of the power is also understanding, of course, the next steps while we think our collective way of addressing these aspects, the safeguards that we're going to put in place, the right-based approach that we're going to ensure that we are driving solutions that are putting also people at the center and ensuring that technology are going to drive us for sustainable and just future. So here are part of the things that we are receiving now as comments. Thank you, a lot of them. So what is the biggest hope and concern about artificial intelligence in sustainable finance? Well, we have the help with process of information to take the better information decisions. We have the fair distribution. We have discussions around Western and South and global unbalanced. The fact that artificial intelligence are also holding us racist. We can add colonial and other related historical inequalities into the same process. We also have positive things when we understand that this can provide shortcut channels to resource to communities. It can improve implementation. It can support faster decisions, fair redistribution. Humanitarian artificial intelligence can also be used to solve problems of all kinds. So it's relevant and very interesting to understand that we have the both sides at the table. We have both concerns at the same time as that we have hopes for artificial intelligence. So I think we're going to have a really, really interesting panel today. And for keeping this discussion moving, I would like to invite our panelists on stage. I would like first to invite Josimara Baré. She is coordinator of Ruta Fund, if I'm pronouncing corrected now. She is an indigenous woman of the Baré people and who have been carrying a dedicated Stratton Indigenous-led financial mechanism. Josimara, por favor, você pode se juntar a nós no palco. Benoit Clement, growth and product advisor of EverCity, who has extensively experienced weaving together the fields of technology, finance, and nature-based solutions. And Douda Semenbin, CEO of Africa Catalytic and Distinguished Fellow, Africa Center for Economic Transformation. And I also would like to invite for joining us virtually, Carolina Suarez Visbal, CEO of Latin Pacto, who has over 18 years of experience in private social investment and philanthropy, and who is joining us in the screen. Yes, right now. Thank you very much, Carolina. I will join you in the stage this time. So thank you very much once more. I would like to start in the first round, ask 2 questions for Josimara Baré, and I will shift to Portuguese. So those who would like translation for Portuguese, please remember to scan the QR code that you have in front of you. It's in the screen as well. Josimara will need to leave us soon, so she will give the first 2 interventions on this session. Então, Josimara, muito obrigado pela presença aqui hoje. E para começar com você, eu gostaria que você, por gentileza, compartilhasse um pouco da sua experiência na gestão de fundos liderados por indígenas e quais são os princípios necessários para garantir que tecnologia e inovação digital ajudem fluxos financeiros a chegar aos povos indígenas, a chegar às comunidades que estão na linha de frente da implementação, ao mesmo tempo em que permitem defender a sua soberania, a sua governança e o seu direito à autodeterminação. Por favor.
Boa tarde a todos. Esse é um tema super interessante, né? Como que nós utilizamos tecnologia, mas com essa sensibilidade de entender o impacto que ela tem sobre os nossos territórios. Eu faço a gestão de um fundo indígena que se localiza no estado de Roraima, aqui no Brasil. E eu diria que, em relação a essa pergunta, nós utilizamos a inovação e a tecnologia para que ela se complemente dentro da organização, né? Nós trabalhamos com uma plataforma de gestão, né? Essa plataforma ela é online e, nessa plataforma, a intenção é que todo o nosso trabalho, desde o início, seja guardado, essa memória, né? Como se fosse realmente um banco de dados. Nós fazemos coleta de informações em campo, nas comunidades, e essa plataforma digital é como esse banco de dados onde a gente insere as informações. Sejam informações qualitativas, mas também informações quantitativas, né? Para que a gente entenda a longo prazo qual é o impacto que esse financiamento está tendo dentro do território. E penso eu que a tecnologia ela pode ajudar também em vários processos, especialmente nos processos financeiros, em como que a gente faz prestação de conta, relatórios financeiros e narrativos, em como que a gente usa a inteligência artificial para aprimorar aquilo que a gente já faz, né? A gente já faz isso no nosso dia a dia, mas como a tecnologia e a inteligência artificial pode nos ajudar a melhorar, transcrever, enfim, outros formatos. Então, um pouco do que eu posso compartilhar é que a gente vem utilizando, assim como em outros fundos aqui no Brasil também, essa experiência de plataforma online para utilização de banco de dados, para que no futuro a gente possa fazer avaliação de impacto.
Excelente. Josimara, muito agradecido. E eu gostaria de fazer uma segunda pergunta para você, para aproveitar o seu tempo aqui com a gente e entender um pouquinho como que os fundos liderados por indígenas, como o fundo do qual você tem co-liderado, demonstram modelos alternativos de confiança, de responsabilidade, e que podem orientar uma inovação financeira de forma mais ampla e de forma mais justa.
Mais uma vez, nós estamos aqui na COP30, em Belém do Pará. Vocês estão sentindo o calor de Belém, eu acredito, suando pelos corredores aqui, não é mesmo? E isso são mudanças climáticas. Nós estamos falando de mudanças climáticas há 30 anos. E a gente nem usa mais esse termo, mudanças climáticas. A gente fala de emergência climática. Realmente a gente precisa fazer grandes mudanças. E para que essas mudanças aconteçam, a gente também precisa de grandes investimentos. A gente não vai conseguir chegar a um lugar com receio de pisar um pouquinho. A gente precisa apostar grande. A gente precisa criar uma relação de confiança com quem está à frente no enfrentamento à emergência climática. E os povos indígenas são os grandes protagonistas nesse enfrentamento, né? Cientificamente foi comprovado que os nossos territórios, eles são territórios importantes para o planeta. Importantes porque nos nossos territórios nós temos água, nós temos floresta, nós temos rios, nós temos animais, nós temos uma biodiversidade que é essencial para o nosso futuro. No futuro, a gente não vai precisar de petróleo, dinheiro, ouro, ou seja lá qualquer outra coisa. Nós vamos precisar de água, a gente vai precisar de ar, nós vamos precisar de terra. Então, é necessário que a gente saia daqui com essa consciência de que existem futuros em que é possível manter um equilíbrio com a natureza. E para que a gente possa fazer isso, nós precisamos ter essa confiança em quem vive na natureza. Povos indígenas, ribeirinhos, extrativistas, quilombolas, todos esses atores que estão sentindo na pele todos os dias. E nós temos aqui para apresentar não só demandas, mas a gente tem como apresentar soluções. E os fundos comunitários, fundos territoriais, são essa forma de fazer o recurso chegar ao território, a quem realmente precisa, para que tenha o impacto que a gente necessita para uma virada, para uma mudança nessa questão do enfrentamento à emergência climática. No mais, é isso. Muito obrigada.
Josimara, muito obrigado pela sua contribuição, suas palavras, sua experiência compartilhada. Eu acho que parte do que a gente escuta de você é justamente povos indígenas na sua diversidade, que também trazem para a gente essa diversidade de mundos possíveis e a diversidade de soluções que precisam ser financiadas de maneira justa, de maneira direta, de maneira equitativa, no tempo necessário. E isso acho que vocês têm demonstrado muito bem, então agradeço a sua contribuição. E também fica à vontade, porque eu sei que você tem outras agendas na sequência. So Josimara is leaving us now because she has other agendas. But I would like to ask for a round of applause for her, and then we're going to keep the panel. Muito obrigado. So, I'm going to keep on the same round of questions, and now I'm going to move to Benoit. Benoit. Thank you, Benoit. Benoit, you have been working with private investors, building artificial intelligence-driven risk models for climate finance. What are the most promising and most challenging patterns you have been observing at these tools and their mainstream in finance?
I would say that some of the promising patterns that we're seeing right now is that we're able to shift from ESG scores to asset level and place-based risk. This means we're able to get real data on assets, the supply chains, and the landscapes themselves. The level of granularity is increasing, which is really powerful. Another promising pattern that we're seeing is we're going to be moving from more static annual reporting to something really close to real time. This is going to enable us to do things like more readily avoid stranded assets or scandals and things of that nature. I'll say also from an efficiency perspective, we're going to be seeing more integration into core risk and credit processes, not just like side ESG teams. So this is going to become more integral to the work that we're doing. Some of the challenging patterns that I'm seeing are data gaps in quality. And when I think about artificial intelligence, and I'm sure everyone here in this room uses it probably on a daily basis, it's remarkably confident about anything that it says, even when there's just absolutely nothing there, or the quality of that information or data is just total garbage. So yeah, it comes up with really compelling responses, and it's really up to us when we're thinking about the design and the governance that we structure to harness this tool more effectively is going to be crucial to having the kinds of outcomes and the impacts that we want to drive. Related to this is the opaqueness of the models. Sometimes you're not able to see how the results that were generated came to be. And there's also, related to this, there's some power asymmetry. When you think about, it's fantastic that we're able to have models train on data, but there's a lot of individuals and institutions that don't necessarily get to decide how their data is used, when it's used, why it's used. And so there's also some issues that we're going to have to resolve around that, which again comes back to governance and design of the systems that support tools like artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much, Benoit. I think that is a process also to understand when you're talking about private and exactly the questions that you raised to us. A lot of the monitoring process of it, the reporting process of it, the verification process of it. And I'd like to take this type of discussions to invite also Carolina that is joining us virtually. Carolina Latin Impacto connects investors and local enterprises across Latin America. So I'd like to ask you what bottlenecks in information, trust, or due diligence still keep capital from flowing to where it's most needed, and what opportunities do you see for using artificial intelligence to bridge this information gap? Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here with you. Boa tarde para todos. Estou em Belém, mas não tenho a blue zone, so I want to speak in English. So Latin Impacto is a Latin American network that drives more strategic capital investment for impact. So from venture philanthropy, impact investment to sustainable finance. So we cover the whole continuum of capital to scale innovative and sustainable solutions that transform social and environmental realities across the region. We have more than 240 members that are investing in more than 60 countries in Latin America, including foundations, family offices, impact investment funds, corporations, multilateral organizations. I'm happy that Sandra is there from WWF from Colombia. I'm seeing here. Hello, Sandra. So what we do is that we provide specialized knowledge, provide capital initiatives, and connect key ecosystem players to generate transformative and collaborative impact. So that Impacto is almost new. We were established 5 years ago, but maybe you're aware and you are familiar with our sister networks. That is Impact Europe in Europe, AVPN in Asia, and AVPA in Africa. So regarding your questions, one of the biggest challenges for impact capital to flow and what is most needed in Latin America is the information asymmetry. So in many countries, especially in Central America and the Caribbean countries, but also in the Pan-Amazonic region, there is not consolidated or reliable information about who is investing, in which sectors, and with what results. So this generates a lack of trust both among investors and local stakeholders. So at Impacto, we understood that this information gap cannot be resolved simply with more reports or surveys, but we need to find a way and new ways of observing the ecosystem in real time. And understanding this reality, we developed the Social Investment in Action in Latin America, what we call CIAL. So CIAL is a platform that uses artificial intelligence to map capital flows and impact activities from thousands of public information sources. Every month, we analyze more than 200,000 news items in 3 languages, Spanish, Portuguese, and English. And what we do with that, we identify where resources are moving and who is driving impact. So with this AI tool, we are transforming scattered data into structured knowledge. This is not only reduces uncertainty for investors, but also accelerates due diligence. So for you as an investor, you can have more easy information to know which actors are already operating in a specific territory, what topics are being funded, and where there are the investment gaps. So we don't want to replace the person, but we want to accelerate. We want to accelerate how we can build information with evidence. So right now we want to have more information, who is investing who, and having the information from the most important investors that are part of that Impacto. So we are combining technology with strategic alliances. So using this data intelligence to target capital and how that Impacto network can ensure that more resources can be reach the territory and the communities.
Carolina, thank you very much. I think you bring a very nice concept that is the information integrity. I think, of course, that we understand that private capital or finance as a whole want to reach return-based investment, but this is only possible when they trust in what they are investing. And I think this is crucial for listen for you and understand that this networking process, the AI for covering information will be leading also this process and moving us forward. So for the next round, I also would like to focus a little bit more on the partnership across finance, technology and civil society to accelerate an inclusive and sustainable artificial intelligence powered transition. I would like to give the floor now and ask Dauda. Through the Africa Catalytic, you advise African governance on financial reforms. What enabling conditions are most important to ensure that digital transformation into artificial intelligence or beyond support fair and inclusive growth?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. You're right. I am leading a African organization called Africa Catalyst, which is based in Senegal and in Kenya. And we work a lot with African countries and African institutions. So if you ask me the question that you just asked, I would give you a perspective as someone who works a lot with African countries, but someone also who is an economist. I spent 16 years at the IMF before I started working with this organization. First of all, I think the first issue that we know is with AI, there is a big potential to improve productivity. We economists think that one of the sources of growth is improved productivity. If you improve that, the way that people actually sort of are productive, then you can very much focus them to do more economic activity, just not people, but also businesses. And what we know with AI is that it has a big potential in terms of helping cost-cutting, having a cost-cutting impact, supporting agriculture, supporting health, supporting education, supporting finance. All of that, if you, with AI, are able to very much find more efficient processes, you are able to actually increase the productivity of those organizations and, of course, have an impact on growth. So this is the theory, right? You have to what you can do now to fulfill the potential and the impact of AI. That's the question. What we can see now is, I think, when you ask your question at the beginning of this panel, we saw a lot of people thinking that their concerns is that AI can make the rich richer. At the same time, also, it means that actually the poor can actually maybe not get poorer, but at least they may not get richer. Why? Because if they don't have access to those, AI technologies or, the new technological innovation, chances are they cannot very much use it to improve, productivity and be able to sort of boost growth. And that's a big issue. The big issue that a lot of people are concerned about is that digital divide. How to make sure that at the same time the North is investing now billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in AI, in data centers, how we can also make sure that can benefit the global South, and that's a big issue. If not, what is going to happen is actually that global digital divide, where the new innovation will actually very much benefit the global North, but not enough the global South. And I think this is a big issue. And now, if we are able to find a solution so that then maybe we can solve the first part of the problem, which is to allow countries in developing countries to be able to use those technologies to improve the way people in those countries are living, their well-being, but also very much improve the way businesses actually function in those countries. I go in many African countries. You can see some questions where, some countries where AI is already being used. For instance, you go to South Africa, you talk to the tax commissioner, they would tell you that they are already using AI, power apps to improve tax collection, and it's working. But South Africa is one of the emerging market countries in Africa. You go to fragile countries like, I would not name some countries, but those countries that are struggling with fragility, they are not gonna really they're not using AI as it must be. So we cannot very much expect AI to have an impact at this stage unless we find the ways to introduce it to those countries. And I think that's where the issue of fair and inclusive growth is important. AI can very much stimulate growth if that's used, but how to make it inclusive around the world, that's the big issue. You can sort of power or sort of foster growth in the US or maybe in Europe or even in some emerging market because they're using AI. But if you're not able to find a way to bring it to the developing world, that's not going to very much help there. And that's the issue around fair and inclusive growth. And one last issue that I would also mention is, I think, another potential way for AI to impact growth and, of course, help improve living conditions is also through its impact on finance. So what we can see is AI can very much, by sort of facilitating and improving efficiency and effectiveness, it can help actually sort of boost the availability of capital. The problem is finding the channel to get that global capital go down to where it is needed for nature and for climate sort of actions in countries like in developing countries in the global south. And we are struggling with that because AI can come up with a lot of solution, but it's not going to be something that is automatically going to be implemented. It needs a coordinated approach among all actors, among all partners, for that to be to materialize, right? For that to become a reality on the ground. And I don't think that we have that sort of coordination and partnership going on at this stage. So hopefully with COP30, hopefully with other sort of global forums, we can try to do that. But that's a big issue so far.
Doda, thank you very much. It was excellent intervention, and I think you touched really important points on the differentiation between what theory, but what is practice, what is implementation, and the different stages and scales of inequalities that we have, that also artificial intelligence are facing the same inequalities from richer and poorer, from global south to global global north, and so on. So thank you very much for these insights. And in the same line, I would like to give the floor back to Carolina. And Carolina, from your experience, what kinds of cross-sector partnerships are providing most effective in keeping technology aligned with local priorities? Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I already mentioned our AI tool, the social investment in action. And something that we have learned with this is that with this tool is that technology only creates real value when it firmly is anchored with the local priorities. We need to understand the communities, the territory. And this alignment only happens when data, technical expertise, and on-the-ground action converge to the cross, creating and extracting cross-sector partnerships. So when we understand partnership for us is our priority. So we, at La Impacto, we promote effective partnerships, and we have seen bring together three types of actors. So we need to bring the local knowledge network, so foundations, community organizations, local governments that contribute context, validation, and a deep understanding of realities on the ground. Second, we need to understand who are the technology developers or partners. So who are those that are translating local needs into adaptable and relevant technological solutions. And the third partner is how we can bring impact investors or funders, those actors that are using the insights generated to make evidence-based decisions and direct resources toward the most effective strategies. So with the social investment in action, our EI tool, this combination has been essential. So the technology analyzes global data, but with our Latin Pacto members and with our partners who are interpreting, contextualizing, and validating these insights locally. So we need to ensure that knowledge doesn't just having a big, beautiful dashboard, but we need to translate this information and to translate this intelligence data and how we can shape more this information to have more informed, relevant, and sustainable investment strategies. So every month we're using this data, and with our team, we are translating this information and we are sharing with our members. So we want to be sure that this approach is fully aligned with the three pillars that guide the Latin Pacto's work. So we need to provide specialized knowledge and innovative that is complementary to these EI tools. We need to emphasize how we can use innovative finance, non-financial support, and impact measurement through visual training, master classes, webinars, and regional events. And we need to promote high-value connections among key actors across the region. So we're talking about Latin America and the Caribbean region, and how we can create spaces for dialogue, and how we can use this data, and how we can connect with the in-person events, master classes, and webinars that we're promoting all the time. And the third strategy that we promote at Impacto is how we can mobilize and drive collective capital to express an impact in critical sectors for the region, encouraging more strategic, coordinated, and transforming investments. So for us, we understand that technology can be global, but impact must be deeply local. So for us, cross-sectors partnerships are critical to create meaningful connections and collective capital mobilization. So it is the only way that we can ensure how we can have this balance and generate lasting change for the communities.
Thank you very much. I think you bring also very helpful insights for us here on the power of the partnerships, but also the power of the access to information in an equally way to all of them to make their work jointly and to work to the same cause and to the same process. And to move us a little step further, I would like to give the floor back to Benoit and also focus now on aspects related with the governance and safeguards and how can we start building trust at scale. So, Benoit, how can private sector innovation stay accounted to the planetary boundaries, to social equity, without waiting for regulation to catch up?
Well, we're definitely not going to be making our targets if private sector waits for regulation. So there's a few different things that we can do in the private sector that can help move us along with hitting our climate targets. Starting with voluntary hard guardrails. This is where policies are aligned with science and human and environmental rights. Another lever that they can pull is tying compensation and capital costs to environmental and social impact metrics, not just assets under management and profit-oriented KPIs. A third lever that I would name would be radical transparency and shared governance. They can use decentralized ledger technologies for data. They can have governance mechanisms that are more inclusive of the communities that they're serving. And I think a last one would be placing investments, kind of thinking about like a tree here, but placing investments at the tips of the roots, and that is in the communities themselves, to build capacity for local monitoring, data ownership, and also making sure that there's negotiating power given to those communities, included in their governance structures. By investing in data and capacity at the front lines, we're moving from this model where we've just really just kind of done things in head offices and, at the surface level made everything look kind of pretty. And this is something that artificial intelligence is really good at. It's really good at making things like aesthetically look really good on the surface, and a lot of organizations have used that to help with reputational risk from a sort of surface level perspective. But I think if we look at nature as infrastructure and we deploy artificial intelligence using nature as a guiding mechanism, we can ensure that social and environmental impact metrics are core to what we're doing so that we can truly make a difference and reach the targets that we've set for ourselves.
Thank you very much, Benoit. I think you bring also, we listen a lot, usually the aspect that, of course, like voluntary actions or voluntary guidelines, voluntary frameworks are not enough, but at the same time, regulations are not on the scale and pace that we need. So it's crucial to understand what are the adjustments that we need to do right now to ensure that even the voluntary make it stronger. So thank you very much for your contribution. And I bring floor back to Dauda. And I'd like to ask you, please, from macro and policy perspective, what governance arrangements or coalitions can ensure that artificial intelligence enable finance support public goods rather than private concentration?
Well, this is an important question. First of all, I think it is important to say that it's impossible or almost actually very difficult to avoid private sector or private businesses to very much expect a return out of their involvement on AI. This is just normal, and I think that is what is driving those innovation. But what is important, as you indicated, is to make sure that we can direct the finance, the AI power and AI-generated finance to benefit more generally countries and citizens, and I think there are many ways to do so. Of course, as you indicated, you need to build the right coalition, and when you want to identify who should be members of that coalition, you should look at how the financial sort of system can, what are the actors in the financial sector ecosystem that are critical in making sure that the public sector is very much taking its fair share from the finance generated by AI. When we are talking about developing countries, key among those actors are the multilateral development banks, for instance. And what we have seen in the past several years is there has been a very sort of big push to reform those actors, whether it's the multilateral development bank or the development financial institutions. That push has created some effect, but not enough. And that push has very much originated from the G20. They try to reform those institutions to make sure that A, they have more lending, and B, when they have more lending, they can actually extend it to those countries. Because what has happened in the past is they would get some funding, but they would not very much direct it to those countries and projects that need it because of some risk aversion and stuff like that. The problem is those reforms have not been able to very much create a big impact. So how can you make sure that you create a coalition with the governments, but also, you know, let's say, for instance, at the G20 or other forums that can push those institutions to very much use AI-generated finance to be able to finance public goods that can support not only economic activity, but that can also help improve the lives and livelihoods of people. I think this is critical. Another actor that is also very much critical in this is governments and local sort of administration. Nothing can happen without them really playing a role. For instance, when you talked about governments, you're talking about the power of using incentives that are generated by policy and also regulation to make sure that that finance very much trickle down to where it is needed, not only in among citizens, but also to support and benefit the planet and the nature. And I think this is critical. So my sense is, from a macro perspective, you can very much do a lot. You have to reinvent the way these financial institutions at the private level, but also at the international level, functions, and how you make sure that A, you use AI to boost the lending sort of capacity that they have, and B, you make sure that also you use AI to very much find way for government to, in a more transparent manner, to follow how the funding is used to benefit the local communities, to benefit also the population, and to create livelihood. I think this is critical, and that is something that a lot of countries have not been able to do so far. And I think going forward, that needs to be addressed and overcome.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very insightful way to say also where complexity comes in, because then we're also figuring out how what we heard a lot in this type of spaces, we heard a lot of CBDs, the reform of the international architecture and how we can start at global level, understanding how to reform international financial institutions, multilateral development banks, and this process work in a cascade mode until also reaching agencies, local level governance, local level finance authorities, and so on. So this is crucial to think in these different scales and how this can and need to work together. We are now on the wrap up of this discussion, so I would like to invite back 30 seconds closing remarks for each of you. So we can please try to keep on these 30 seconds. Carolina, we can please start 30 seconds for closing remarks, please.
Okay, 30 seconds. So I just want to highlight that if we want the artificial intelligence to truly accelerate impact, we need to move from data extraction to data collaboration. So you already asked me about the cross-sector collaboration. So the challenge is not just building smarter tools, more data, but how we can connect them with the people, with the communities, with the territories and organizations, and how we want to drive this change in the territories. So I'm sure that together we can make invisible impact visible, and how we can reduce uncertainty and direct resources where they can create the most value. So let's harness artificial intelligence not to replace human trust, but to amplify by turning data into collective intelligence and partnerships into tangible transformation.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Benoit, you have our 30 seconds closing remarks, please.
I'd like to propose a call to action to investors and financial institutions to stop funding obvious harm, and let's do that by placing nature and human rights at the core of our risk assessments. Let's also, for the tech and data builders, let's treat local communities and the ecosystems as primary users and not edge cases. And finally, to the governments and conveners, let's back open standards and shared infrastructure so no single actor controls all the rails.
Thank you. Lauda, now your
I think
turn.
the title of this discussion was how can AI help reinvent finance for the people and the planet. My sense is the best way to go so is to build the right coalition of partners that can help with that. That coalition should include governments, that should include civil society, that should include local and indigenous community, but also finance people, whether we are talking about multilateral financial institutions, whether we are talking about institutions in Wall Street or banks and all of that. We need to find a way to very much sit around the table and see. We all know what the potential of AI is. How can we realize and materialize that in a way that can very much support living conditions in all around the world, not just in the global north, but also in the global south, and making sure that, of course, it's very much also benefit the nature and the planet. I think that would be a critical way to move forward.
Thank you very much, and thank you for our 3 very amazing panelists today. I think we really heard the process that AI is not a silver bullet. It indeed can contribute a lot to the process, can contribute with economic growth, can contribute with justice in aspects, but we still need a long road to make this a reality. We need to ensure that we are doing our decisions-making process based on inclusive and participatory process, that we're putting people and human rights at the center of the decisions, and ensuring that voluntary, even so, are strict and put in line to ensure that all the processes are happening at the same time. So thank you very much, the 3 of you. I ask for a round of very well-deserved applause for these 3. And I also invite for our GLF team to reintroduce the vision wall. On the screen, the visual wall is a collective vision for finance serving nature's frontiers that the audience can contribute with inputs through the day. The inputs and the mapping from the session was included here. So these are our highlights that we have through all the day and always in a very, very beautiful and inspiring way. And I give floor. I thank you very much once more. Give the floor back to Kelly, and thank you all.
Thank you everyone for your insights. I would like now to give the floor to GLF Senior Strategic Advisor and co-founder John Colmy. So we will have a 1-minute recess and we'll be with John in a moment for some closing words.
Hi. That was a fantastic session. I really, really, really enjoyed it. You're going to see much more of that coming in the future. Just make sure the minister's not coming? Okay. And AI. So the GILF's financial journey, and this is the end of the day, GILF's financial journey began in 2015 at the Royal Society in London with our very first investment case symposium. To think how far we've come, the Luxembourg Green Exchange was launched in 2016. So how far now we're talking about AI. Since then, Luxembourg has been more than a partner. It's been a driving force in the vision that we share. And no one more than this minister, this young minister is the future of the world, a future of Europe, Minister Velmes. Together we have sat with communities, worked with policymakers, engaged financiers across the region and the sector. That decade of work brings us to a milestone moment, the launch of an AI marketplace, the first platform of its kind, designed to connect investors, banks, businesses with high integrity, locally led projects at scale and in minutes. In minutes. In 4 years, this thing will be like a Bloomberg that will show will send to your email 2 good projects every day. That's what's possible. But what's very, very important, and we've been clear from the start, we cannot use AI for sustainability without ensuring that AI itself is sustainable. That is why 2 years ago we created the GLF AI Hub in Nairobi and held consultations across the South from East Africa to Cali, Colombia, and online in every continent. We are not building this blindly. We are building it with communities, with transparency, with accountability at the center. And the response speaks to itself. People know this is necessary. They want to shape it with us. And as Josimar just said, we have to bet big, but we have to do it with communities. It's not that, anyway, let's go ahead. Today, more than 1,400 participants registered to hear this, representing 148 countries, with GLFX chapters hosting watch parties on the day, from wetlands of Bolivia to the Chari Basin in Chad and the high Himalayas. Every conference does something a little different. Today, we had small groups online, networks of 20 and 40 and 50 and 60, 70 countries networking and carry on the discussion. We've never seen this before. It's amazing what's happening, and a lot of this was thanks to AI. We're starting to use it to reach out and target and meet communities, meet them around the world and connect them. This is the time we have to have a huge thank you. First, to the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Biodiversity of the Government of Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, the co-organizer of this conference, funding partner, and unwavering champion. To the Follower Impact Program and the World Bank, to the Global Environment Facility, the Government of Germany and BMZ, BMUKN, and I always say a shout out to Johan Flashbart, who's out there today shaping the world, who brought us to Germany in the first place, the International Model Forest Network of the Government of Canada, to our 35 dedicated charter members, to the Action and Hub Food Hub Pavilion for this collaboration. Thank you so much. It was the hottest room in the whole place, but we still managed to have some great conversations. Thank you to all the speakers, participants, social media ambassadors, our team back there on the cameras. He's using his phone, but I'm talking about you. Thank you. If you notice, this online production was unbelievable. It was perfect everywhere in the world. And with that, it is a great year to change the world. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, John, for your words. And as we come to the end of today's program, we'd like to share some of the best moments of the day. So let's roll the video. So just a quick reminder for everyone here and online, all sessions from this event will remain available on the conference platform. And if you missed anything or would like to revisit a session, please make use of this access. So we are excited also to announce the next major milestone, GLF Africa 2026, with a special focus on rangelands. We look forward to welcome you there as we continue to build momentum and drive change across landscapes and communities. Thank you all for being part of this journey. We hope to leave you inspired, connected, and ready for the next steps ahead. Now, please join us in the networking area for our closing reception. And for those online, please join us in the virtual lounge. Thank you all.